I think the most frustrating thing a great series can do is have a bad ending. Because it's a thing that leaves a lasting impression on the viewer after you invested however much time into a series. While sure, it's about the journey, not the destination, you can't help but wait for a series that reach a satisfying conclusion. Sure, I've experienced mediocre endings or even ones I wasn't necessarily a fan of, but I could at least understand them within the context of the overall story. But no ending made me want to chuck my phone out the window more than this one. The Blood of the Madame Giselle. Honestly, if it wasn't for the ending, this would probably be in my top 10 manga. As much as I'm about to complain, I still really enjoyed the series and would read it again in a heartbeat, but probably like up to chapter 56 if I'm being honest. I'm still all for supporting the author, and you can read the story here. I don't want to butcher the site's name, so I'm just going to put it on the screen. I would definitely put this story under the smut category, so just so you know in advance if steamy scenes are not your thing. But for this video, I'm purely just talking about the plot. Our main character is Giselle, and we quickly learn that her situation is pretty unfavorable. She's wed to a pretty human piece of garbage of a husband who, I guess as a sign of the times, just expects her to fill her duties as a wife, both in the public eye and within the bedroom. But it's obvious Giselle doesn't want to succumb to a life of just being a meek and obedient wife. Her first act of rebellion is not following her husband's rule of not wandering around the house. She ends up meeting our other main character in the story, Isaac, who bites Giselle upon first meeting her. How romantic. But it's obvious he's also very apologetic about the entire thing. Giselle ends up befriending the maid Anne, who along with another maid, Sophia, they both take turns watching over Isaac. Anne tells Giselle where she keeps the keys to the basement, as Giselle has a sort of fascination with Isaac and wants to continue to visit him more often. As you may have noticed, Isaac isn't exactly human. I don't think the author ever explicitly calls them out by name. The closest thing we get is a flower that feeds on blood, but this world has vampires. They drink blood, have unworldly strength, are pretty much immortal except when they combust at the sight of sunlight. There is a few slight differences from the vampires you and I may know of. Like their bodies will shrink and they'll regress to a younger age if they go without blood for too long or get really sick. And they have saliva with healing properties. I don't know, something about that makes it funny. Giselle and Isaac start to find comfort with one another and start having an affair. And at the same time, her husband starts going out late at night and has an affair with a woman by the name of Roxy. There's also rumors of a killer on the loose who we assume is a vampire. Giselle briefly meets a woman by the name of Penny, who is in a relationship with Olivia, who turns out to also be a vampire. From there, we find out there's even more vampires. This guy, Leo, it has been in his family's tradition, you could say, to take care of vampires and help them assimilate to human society. Right now, their main objective is catching the killer. I know I'm throwing a lot of names out there, but it's essential to kind of understanding why the ending was so confusing. So let's skip to the ending and the big reveal. Isaac is found to be the killer. Now this is confusing for a multitude of reasons. Reason number 1, the killer and Isaac were shown to not have the same face. We know a characteristic of vampires is them having pitch black hair and amber eyes. But I didn't know they could suddenly change their bone structure too. To me, if I was trying to keep it a mystery who the killer was, I wouldn't show their face. Maybe that's just me. Like, I would show the back of their head or maybe even a close-up of their eyes, but not their entire face. And I thought the whole point of showing the killer's face was so that we as the audience knew Isaac wasn't the killer, but the people within the story wouldn't know that. Hi, editing me here. So, sorry if the audio sounds a bit different, but when I was looking through pictures to find of the killer, or Isaac, I guess, I found something that made even less sense to me. So this picture in particular, I found in chapter 18, in case you want to fact check me. But during this time, Isaac was telling Giselle about his backstory and him growing up and having his one friend or whatever. And we as the audience, I presume, so at the time, Isaac's with the gazelle, right? Like in their bedroom, like talking to them. And then we see the killer kill someone and somebody finds them or whatever. We as the audience presumably presume, that made no sense. We as the audience presume these two events are going on at the same time, which makes it even more, makes less sense why Isaac would be the killer if these two events, they didn't paint it as like a flashback or anything. These events are presumably happening at the same time. So unless Isaac can like duplicate himself, it makes no sense. And I'm confused. Which only proves my point more. I'm not sure if I'm going to put it in before or after, that this seems like an afterthought rather than the ending the author intended. Reason number 2. Too many times Isaac has had an alibi or was under watch for him to just be killing people willy-nilly like that. It'd be one thing if the author had showed that the killing stopped once Isaac was put under Leo and the rest of the vampires' watch. But since that's not brought up, I can only assume that if he did go out, they would put someone on his tail or a tracker or something, because originally he was their first suspect. Why can I say this? Originally he was their first suspect. So I don't know if you went out. I don't know if maybe just me. If someone I think is the killer goes out, I'm going to follow that person. I'm not just going to let them kill more people. You know, I don't know why it took them so long to figure it out if it was Isaac. I'm so confused. Like, what? That made no sense to me. What? 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 If 2 plus 2 is 2, and 4 plus 4 is 4. Wait, what did I say? If 2 plus 2 is 4, and 5 plus 5 is 10, what the fuck is this? I'm not getting it. Something's not adding up. Oh, that got really heated there. Reason number 3. It's outside the character we as the audience know as Isaac. In the beginning, we were told Isaac had been in that basement for years and had pretty much starved that entire time outside one instance where he drank blood. As a result of that, he felt it was only right that he should be locked up so he could avoid hurting anybody else. As Isaac opens his heart to Giselle, the only person we see that Isaac truly wants to kill is Giselle's husband, because he has shown to be very abusive to her, and he knows how unhappy Giselle is to be with him. So there was a motive there. The only reason he restrains himself is because he doesn't want Giselle to think badly of him. That's why it makes even less sense as to why he would go after innocent people, knowing full well Giselle would hate him for it. The only reasonable solution I can think of is that Isaac kind of blacks out when he does the killings and doesn't even realize what he's doing until it's over. But even that defense is a bit wishy-washy when we go back to point 1 and 2. I don't know why I said 2 like that. Why does he look so different, and why did no one catch him in the act until the very end? Am I expected to believe that? And there was no real foreshadowing until everything was already out in the open, making it seem like the conclusion was an was an afterthought rather than the actual intended ending. So once it was revealed that Isaac was the killer, it felt like such a betrayal not only to Isaac's character, but also the character of Giselle. Giselle shoots Isaac and turns around like it's nothing. No build-up, not even a tear shed. This is the same woman who has cared and loved for Isaac the entire series, and has always took the stance that Isaac was innocent. She was willing to become immortal in order to spend the rest of her life with Isaac. She had her Bella Swan moment, and now you're telling me she can not only shoot someone with no remorse or hesitation, but also someone she deeply loves and cares about? In what world does that even make sense? It would have been one thing if Giselle had been brought up as this stoic person, but she was always shown to act out of emotion. Even crying while shooting Isaac would have made more sense, or even having her just sit down and break down, bawling her eyes out over all the energy and time she spent towards loving him, and just a sense of betrayal and dread knowing all the innocent people he killed. But we get none of that. We just see her walking away, and the next chapter opens up to an 11-year time skip. What? Did I miss something here? It only gets weirder from here when we see a child that looks exactly like Isaac as a child appear, and we see what looks like to be Isaac watching over her. And I'm just left with so much more questions than answers. Why does the child resemble Isaac so much? I wrote show instead of so in my script. I just realized that. Okay. If the person watching over them is Isaac, has there been any more attacks? Because there's blood on his face. I mean, I guess it could be animal blood, but I'm curious. You can't tell me Isaac is the only vampire to have gone rogue. Because some people theorize that it's not actually Isaac, it's the killer. I don't know anymore. And I guess my final question is, what am I supposed to feel after all of this? Like, what was the point? Because the ending made me feel just so empty inside. I'm not saying every story needs a happy ending and people singing Kumbaya by the campfire, but it felt like so much tragedy had already happened that a happy ending only felt fitting. I thought from Giselle growing up with parents who didn't really care for her and marrying an abusive husband, to Isaac who was seemingly betrayed by his only friend at a young age and sold to the black market, or sold on the black market, semantics, that after all this, after everything they've gone through in life, they'd be able to lean on each other and find love and comfort one another. I was expecting to see them happily living together in a nice quiet town with a child of their own in the epilogue, not whatever this is. Another gripe I have with this ending is the story of Anne, who honestly got the worst of it throughout the story. Anne and Giselle become friends, and Anne keeps it a secret that Giselle was going down to the basement. When Sophia figures out that Isaac had escaped one night, she kicks Anne out, but Anne doesn't reveal that it was Giselle who took the key. When Giselle and Anne eventually do reunite, despite her worries, Anne believes Giselle when she says that Isaac has nothing to do with the murders happening. And even when Anne is questioned about being an accomplice to Isaac, who is believed to be the killer by the public, she still defends Isaac and does not reveal Giselle's involvement. As a result, she is sentenced to be hung in front of her family and villagers. She is saved by one of the vampires, Bluebell, who takes her place, but now that Anne is considered dead and an accomplice to a killer, her family is shunned despite nobody thinking it was Anne's fault, and she can never meet her family again, as that would endanger both of their lives. Anne was really getting the worst end of the stick here. I can't. So when it comes to love interest for Anne, we are given two options, Leo and Bluebell. I think she does end up with Leo in the end, as she is now a noble by the end of the story, and says that her husband used to work with Penny and Olivia, but it's not confirmed that it's Leo either. So for me, Leo and Anne as a couple are fine, I guess. I mean, they're okay. To me, it felt like it came out of nowhere. It seemed out of character for Leo because despite how kind and caring others say he was, it was made clear that Leo thought of everything like a business transaction. So it made more sense, despite whatever his feelings were, to marry someone with a noble status equal to his own to upkeep his family's honor. I mean, it's totally plausible that he brought Anne a noble title, but it made more sense that if he really did love Anne, it would have been left as an unrequited love. Not saying that's the right way to go about it, but it seemed more in line with his character to me. On the flip side, we have Anne and Bluebell, who I personally was rooting for, Team Anne and Bluebell. Their initial interaction made complete sense to me. Bluebell did just save Anne's life, so it only felt right that Anne would want to thank her savior. Despite Bluebell not really interacting with anyone outside her circle, she was very fond of Anne from the get-go. They even had a love triangle going on, which made me so much more confused as to why Leo was even added to the mix. Because we already had a love triangle, we didn't need a love square. I thought Anne and Bluebell would have ended up like Olivia and Penny, so you could imagine my disappointment when they didn't. Okay. Like, why? I don't care. Sorry, Leo. Don't really care. I wanted Anne and Bluebell, and you... I was so frustrated by that. I was like, are you serious? I mean, it's one thing to have a bad ending, but I don't even get like my canon couple. It was a bad time. Before I wrap this video up, I wanted to give my own canon ending. If it was me, I would have made Isaac and the killer two different people, but would have made Isaac responsible for one of the killings. That is the death of Giselle's husband. But made it so Isaac was framed to have done all the killings. Like maybe Giselle finds a piece of what her husband was wearing at the crime scene in Isaac's room or something. Then she would have to contemplate on whether to confront Isaac about this or tell the other people in the manor, like Penny or Anne, about her findings. Maybe Isaac runs away out of guilt, and it would tie back into the time when Isaac had asked Giselle what if he had been the one to kill her husband. And Giselle had said that she still would have loved him because she hated his guts anyway, so she would have been like, oh, I still love you. You know, I wanted to kill him too. I wanted to kill him too, so it's all right. It's all good in my book. So you know what? It would make sense. Like she wouldn't have hated him for it. She would understand, right? But in the end, it would have been revealed that Isaac wasn't the killer, and maybe Isaac and the killer battle it out. Giselle finds them and then uses that bullet Penny gave her that actually will kill a vampire. Then the story ends, and Giselle and Isaac can live happily ever after. Yay! Whew. Thank you so much if you listen to my if you listen to my rant. This definitely wasn't the video I had planned even a couple of days ago. I did not envision this video in my future. But this story, The Blood of the Madame Gazelle, was actually finished a couple months ago, and I just didn't realize it until a few days ago. And once I finished reading it, I had all this pent up emotion and thoughts about it that I wanted to I feel like I had to make a video about it. Yeah, I don't want it to be like super negative, but like I said, I still like the story overall, but I had some issues with the ending. The ending kind of made me sad, and it sucks how quickly an ending can sour an entire series. Honestly, it's to the point where I know this happens with a lot of manga, but I kind of wish it was left unfinished. I would prefer an unfinished where I can just make up my own canon ending and just wait around for years hoping it'll get finished than whatever ending we got here, right? That to me that's just kind of the mindset I was in. But yeah, I think that's everything I have left to say. So, bye.